Afternoon all. I had a very interesting club game last night against a very strong opponent, Mures, who has beaten me twice before. He can put opponents under a huge amount of pressure, and he seems to be able to calculate very quickly and accurately, and has very good positional judgment as well. So we were playing away against Hendon Chess Club. I was on board 1. So Mures, I thought I'd play the c4 to avoid previous encounters in his lion variation, or maybe I should, I could have prepared perhaps against lion in detail some lines. Maybe I should try that in the future. It's just an idea. Anyway, so c4, knight f6, and actually we transpose soon into, after this move, I thought maybe I could transpose into the Queen's Gambit declined. There's a choice here. Perhaps I could keep it away from the Queen's Gambit declined territory by playing a move like b3. This is like the fourth most popular move. I mean, b3 is interesting here, but I went for like Queen's Gambit declined transposition. So knight c3, d5, d4, and we'll look in the live book here. Bishop e7, bishop g5, and the most common move here is an immediate h6. I guess I haven't been playing this position that much and haven't been paying attention to details. It's slightly more popular than just immediately castling. There are about 5,000 games, 5,100 for just castling, and h6 for immediately challenging the bishop. And really I should have been wrestling these moves out. I think I was spending too long here thinking about things. Two main options here. The most popular significantly seems to be to retreat the bishop to maintain that dark square bishop. The second most popular, with over 1,000 games, is actually to take on f6. Taking on f6 is interesting, I think. So the follow-up, this is seems to be the main line. So bishop d3, and what perks do you think it carries here? I mean, maybe, okay, black usually takes on c4. This position, it seems about equal, and you end up with an isolated queen's pawn here potentially. I did in the game actually. This looks interesting. Black's got that bishop pair, but white seems to have a reasonable position here. There's actually even 113 games from this position, believe it or not. It's a very theoretically trodden path. So it's meant to be about equal, this whole thing. So there's yeah. It looks as though it's in balance with this isolated queen's pawn and black having the bishop pair. Yeah, it looks to be an interesting position, but in balance. So that's all from bishop takes f6. It doesn't seem like a bad move necessarily. I played bishop h4. Now after castles, yeah, it looks like a fairly standard thing to play e3. Not many choices here apart from e3. Usually that's overwhelmingly most people play e3, so supporting the c pawn. Now knight bd7 was played. Now here there's a little bit of controversy really, that actually I think bishop d3 is a playable move, but much more trendy, much more played is actually rook c1. It's about gaining a tempo on this d takes c4 or not, I think. If we look why there's 377 games with rook c1, it's interesting to consider here that the move c5 is a bit way down. It's actually 4, 5, 6. So it's as if it's designed against c5 almost. Why is it way down here? Well, white can actually play c takes, and this doesn't look entirely brilliant for black. This position, black's having the isolated queen's pawn there. If black's forced to play a horrendous looking move like that, it can't be that great. The isolated queen's pawn doesn't look that great, and in fact bishop takes f6 here, and d5 is weakened, and then actually we're on c5 as well. So rook c1 does seem to be, actually, one of the points seems to be in particular designed against the immediate c5. The immediate c5 mechanism would potentially give white an isolated queen's pawn, because black's got the option of taking and taking and playing on the isolated queen's pawn, and black's top priority would be to improve this bishop and keep the blockade. So this rook c1 was actually in the notes by Alexander Alekhine on a Botvinnik game, where Alekhine kind of almost like said this is more of a fighting game to Botvinnik's bishop d3. There's a classic game, Botvinnik versus Vidmar, which was annotated by Alexander Alekhine, and Botvinnik had played actually the immediate bishop d3. In Livebook today, this is the third most popular choice, 54 games. Second most popular is queen c2. I played actually bishop d3, and yes, there is this idea here. Black can actually play c5 in this position, and he did. Now, there isn't so much bite with c takes d. You know, the rook on c1 is not so punishing. For c takes d here, Black, okay, perhaps doesn't do this. I mean, he can do this. I mean, this looks as though that's equal as well. It isn't so bad, you know. So Black can do that, but Black can also just take with the knight, and you know, maybe this is approaching equality as well. So it's an interesting little, you know, nuance. If you want to play rook c1, it seems to be the most recommendable move according to Livebook. Maybe it is partly designed against c5, and if that's the case, c6 is actually the most popular here, with games continuing often like this, with Black taking there and sorting out the bishop, usually across this diagonal, trying to play for that, but White can try and attack Black's pawns. For example, like this, there's quite a few games from that position with c5 there. So yeah, it's all pretty interesting stuff, the finesses, but it seems overall, yeah, rook c1 is the preferred move. I played bishop d3, and okay, no big deal, you might think. So c5, but now Black is able to Christian, I mean, this is his first name, I think, Mures, Christian, he settles me with the isolated queen's pawn by taking here and taking here. And yeah, there's this classic Botvinnik-Vidmar game, which is very, very similar to this game because of knight b6 and this idea that Black is going to unravel the bishop like this. So the bishop's quite good on that diagonal. And it would seem with the knight on d5, there's also ideas of knight f4 as well as knight b4. Very interesting stuff. So bishop b3, bishop d7. So it seems a very solid, potentially, system for Black here, with that structural defect and getting rid of the problem bishop. So we see the move now, queen d3, and I think technically Black should perhaps most accurately play knight bd5, so that if on the event of bishop c2, you know, with crude lineup, there's always knight b4 to discourage that. But Christian played bishop c6, and although it looks at f3, I can actually now play bishop c2. And the idea is that on bishop takes f3, I wouldn't play this because that just loses a pawn. I would play here bishop takes f6 with a great position, probably winning actually, winning a piece, because then, you know, to avoid the mate, I'm just winning a piece. So I thought that was pleasant that I've got this bishop c2 in for free. And he plays actually rook e8, which looks like a total invitation now to take on f6 and play queen h7. I didn't want to be overexcited about this. You know, from my last game against Chris Dunkley, being overexcited about something which seems amazing, because actually it really concretely isn't mating Black or anything, having the queen on h7. Maybe there's a minimum threshold really of pieces around the opponent's king, too few, and it's like an empty blitz room or something for blitz chess. You need quite a few to get a really good raging attack. You know, just the queen here, if we look at this, with devoids of support, and Black's actually got the dark square bishop now. I've given up the dark square bishop. This needs very careful play from White. The engine suggests White does have an advantage, though, in this position, even with the queen without support. It seems a bit lonely, and it's also potentially a trap piece as well on h7, even in this line. If we look at this, what does White do? Well, the engine suggests bishop e4. It's an interesting use of the check to play, you know, to isolate the pawn here and play knight e4 after. So, for example, taking here is not going to be good. Here, and if here, it's going to be a disaster, I think, like this, and then we can exploit the king very simply on that e file. That's going to be a disaster. So Black would have to be very careful on bishop e4. Now let's go with say bishop takes e4, this position. I mean, I should have perhaps gone in for this. This is very, very appetizing as well. So that immediate, yeah, even though it looks as though there's no support for the queen, it really has to be carefully judged here from the concrete variations. Black, I guess that's the major threat which is being addressed by the engine's suggestion here, bishop e4. Black is threatening to take here and then take on d4. So bishop e4 keeps the pressure going, and introduces white white's now got a positional threat here just to play on the c pawn, and this echoes the game a bit. That I thought one use of the queen would be for this bishop e4 later, as you'll see. Perhaps this is the position that I should have done it. How easy is it for black to actually play this particular position? We've seen bishop takes d4 is not going to be too hot. I mean, say a move like rook ac8, then taking here. Now here might be threatening in the future. Well, it's keeping an X-ray on the E file. This looks as though it should be dangerous, but black can keep the blockade. Again, questions: is the queen just too lonely here and it needed more attacking pieces? Is it potentially even a trappable piece one day on king e7, rook h8, that sort of thing? But actually with knight e4, yes, it does seem as though this could be a fun position for white. And also, as soon as knight e5 happens, there is actually another attacking piece on f7. If we just follow this through as an example. Now if the queen moves, we've always got, well, we've got knight e5, and we might be threatening, well, we're attacking the rook. If, say, rook c2, that there's attacking resources here. I mean, there's an attack here actually for knight d6. So forget rook c2. And if takes here, it looks just comfortable, this position. On takes here, knight c3. Say like this, it starts to be really quite dangerous for black with that queen on h7 in these lines. Say here, then like check and queen takes g7. It looks as though there's some dangers, but again, this is not terminal. It seems for black, this kind of position is not actually terminal. In fact, black has his own threats as well. So yeah, the invitation for the queen on h7 is not immediately, it didn't seem immediately apparent how it was winning for me if I did this, and it is investing that dark square bishop. I actually inserted the move knight e5. This might be a little mistake, but it is kind of an attacking piece on f7, and the classic Botvinnik-Vidmar game, without the rook c1, instead the bishop d3, was very, very interesting here, because after knight bd5 there's two very interesting key threats here on b4 to fork my queen and bishop and rob me of this nice battery, and f4 as though it's dismantling my king. Two very, very interesting threats to consider. And the beautiful thing about Botvinnik-Vidmar is that he got to play like queen h3, he got the light square bishop, and he got this f4 f5 going. He got rid of black's light square bishop, and actually statistically the queen had lots of other attacking pieces. The knight was always eyeing f7, the bishop was kept, and this rook even came into the attack. It was like a beautiful crossfire in that classic game. But what happens here is I'm kind of interested in this queen coming to h7 in this position, and as I say, it's like some empty chat room or something, or if the queen without an attacking piece support might not be anything at all in this position. And it's actually a shame, a kind of weakness of the last move, to play at any point knight takes c6, because it's actually an attacking piece on f7. You can imagine, ideally we want to like smash black up with the rook on the f file, some crashing attack on the light squares. But how can this be arranged? It seems in this position, actually, believe it or not, that the move a3 is actually possible here, and possibly the strongest move. This is an engine suggestion. It's a classic looking position. You might think, how on earth does this work? Well, the invitation for knight f4 can actually be parried by queen d2. Incredibly. You might think, no way. Okay, bishop takes, you might understand the f, queen takes f4, but knight takes g2 seems to be attacking the bishop. So there's no time for taking here, because not only knight takes h4 takes the bishop, it threatens now knight f3, right? The thing is, there's an amazing resource in this position, in bishop g3. And actually white is kind of winning a piece. The knight's kind of stuck here, and white's now threatening to take. This is pretty bad. For example here, f3, and we're going to be munching that knight pretty soon, e.g. with the king. So it's incredible to think, but to keep all the tension going in the position, the move a3 actually seems available as a move. I kind of cashed out the position, and it's not very nice to cash out the position here if the queen, as I say, hasn't got attacking support, and I kind of regret that. Ideally, I want a kind of Botvinnik, position here with a lot of pieces, and so we can actually even almost arrange the queen coming to h3 and then maybe even f4, f5 in the ideal scenario. But the thing is, the knight is on f4 here, so this has to be in that Botvinnik game. Actually, the bishop was on g5 covering f4. h6 hadn't been played, so to get that kind of attacking position on h7 with maybe a rook coming in for support, it's a bit far-fetched actually. With bishop on h4, I can't actually work out so far how to get a sort of attacking position like that from here. Say black plays rook c8, we can't play something. I mean, we're also now threatened positionally, not just with knight f4 here, but potentially knight takes and then bishop e4 to get rid of the bishop. If queen here, then knight f4 is of course good now. This in this particular position, this is good. So if we play a move like f3, it seems the attacking potential, it doesn't seem like an easy ride here. In fact, black seems to be almost virtually equal after queen b6 from an engine perspective. I think the blockade on d5 is actually quite impressive. I mean, maybe this cast doubt on the whole thing, the isolated queen's pawn in this variation, that rook c1, as Alexander Alekhine had commented, and as used in the classic Alekhine versus Capablanca World Championship match. They had loads of games with the early rook c1, not allowing black this c5 system to isolate the queen's pawn, because here I'm not convinced that a party of attacking pieces can be arranged against the black king. And I know I keep referencing the Botvinnik against Vidmar game. I recommend you check that out, but this is actually a far cry from it. If the bishop was on g5 short and the queen here, then we'd have f4, f5. And any time h6 was played, we could have snapped the bishop and had a ready-made attack. But the subtle nuances of this particular position, it seems as though black's really got a point here. This is dead equal. I can't see the fun of this position. If you see what I mean, the bishop covering f4 is that major thing. We've had to play f3, compromise the dark squares. I mean, this sort of position is it just seems to be absolutely nothing. Black seems to be absolutely comfortable here and can get rid of his isolated c pawn. It seems absolutely nothing here. So it is quite fascinating just from a theoretical perspective. So anyway, yeah, I cash out the position. I play knight takes c6, thinking that I'm onto something here with this forcing sequence. Then I play knight takes here, so he clearly can't take there without getting mated in 2. Maybe I am on something a little bit. Bishop takes. I give up voluntarily the dark squares a bit and the dark square bishop. But in this position, I thought bishop e4 because the unfortunate positions of the rook. So takes here. I'm going to be winning the exchange. Or there might even be technically stronger. Rook ad1 apparently for rook d7. Yeah, if I get a rook to d7, it's going to be mate time again, because I've cut the king's entrance. But yeah, this position did seem quite good. I mean, I had a reasonable amount of excitement for this position, but actually, as I say, the queen is without support here on h7, and any check seems absolutely harmless. The king just goes to e7 and big deal. There's nothing there. The queen just has to go out. I've just wasted time, and in fact I'm getting my queen trapped, even worse. So it's ridiculous. It's hilarious and ridiculous. So bishop e4, I thought, yeah, the point here, I thought I could target the c6 pawn. But after this, it becomes clear, you know, black is actually now just going to take my isolated queen's pawn. So it's even worse than the other variations looked at. And this isn't good. This really isn't good, that black might be threatening this. Or even, there's another threat, just to trap the queen with king e7 and rook h8. I play this, and in fact, king e7's played, so it's brewing on the cards to trap the queen. So I make some space for my queen to come back in reverse gear and maybe target the c6 pawn. I thought, yeah, fair enough. But technically, black can actually just play bishop takes d4 here, it seems. It's just the pawn up, and we'll be following with things like c5. And I thought maybe I've got some compensation during the game with queen e4 and then b4 here. But I think black should be okay, fundamentally. Say like this. What is white actually doing? It doesn't seem a big deal. Any takes here, rook takes, what's the big deal? Rook takes, there's queen takes, and even on f2. So that would be no big deal. It'll just be a pawn down, opposite colour bishops. No big deal at all. So this whole invitation for the queen to come to h7, it's a bit provocative, but it's totally, you know, I've damaged my dark square control. I've given up the dark square bishop. But on the other hand, yeah, the game seems to be subtly different from Botvinnik Vidmar. As if that was a model game for playing against the isolated queen's pawn, then this is a cold shower reality game that I couldn't really arrange that because of that early h6, which meant that actually knight f4s later in the positions we had were possible, and it just changed the whole picture. But anyway, going on from this position, we have this, and now king e7. So bishop f3. He plays actually. He doesn't take on d4. He plays bishop g5, and he's not only hitting my rook, but potentially he's going to swallow my queen whole by first stopping the diagonal and then playing rook h8. So I think I've got to do something about this. I play rook c5. Well, I've got to do something about the rook. And then, yes, this g6 happened. And it occurred to me, I thought a planned idea was h4. I don't think h4 is particularly working very well here. On h4, because black is now threatening, you know, to trap my queen, apparently he can actually just do this here. And yeah, we're still getting the queen trapped. Ouch. Queen trapped. So that is total liability, that queen up there. So I come up with another idea, which is, okay, I'll try and get the queen out immediately like this. And if bishop f6, I was going to invite, you know, taking on h2, you know, here, I take here, we have this position. I thought this would be okay for me. Say like this, takes, I thought my king would come out like this, and it would be okay. For example, like this, white's even better here if he went in for that check. No need to go in for that check, and I'm back to attacking his king. So that's fine, I thought, but unfortunately, you know, he didn't do that. He actually played an amazing move. This is the top stockfish move. He plays actually bishop f4. And there's an idea now, not just attacking h2, but also to play rook h8, and then the other one to g8, just to win my queen again, or more simply rook g8. In fact, pardon me. Sorry, rook g8 is the threat. Now the queen's on g7. Rook g8 is the immediate to win the queen, and I'm virtually forced with this next move. It's the only move to avoid the queen, to do something about the queen. Rook a5. So I can answer rook g8 now with rook takes here, and I'm on f7, or the rook is loose, you know, here, and I take here and then take that. So that was my rescue plan here. And I got a little bit excited here that after queen c7, well, first horrified, I'm going to lose my queen now. In the worst case scenario, I can play d5 and lose a pawn though, it would seem. Maybe that interferes because I've got d6 on bishop e5 or something, or actually, sorry, the rook's hanging anyway. This is not happening. No, pardon me. Yeah, this was the slight stag. No, I had to play another only move here in this position, and that was rook e5. And the emergency break here for my queen being trapped, I thought was safe enough that if he plays rook g8 in this position, then I think white is doing well with rook takes e6 check. After here, check. And this is big trouble now. You know, if here, queen f6, it's actually a mate in 2, bishop g4, checkmate. But he played an amazing move here in this position. Instead of rook g8, he played again the top stockfish move. I don't really know what to say about this game. I'm in admiration of absolute accuracy displayed by black in this game. So he wasn't tempted by rook g8. I mean, that he did, you know, tell me he looked at some of the lines. But you know, this does seem to be winning with rook here. Bishop g4, there might be f5, but again, it might be okay for white. This position, this apparently this is good for white. So no, hell, pardon me. No, I've got this all wrong. Rook e1's the only move here. Bishop g4 loses. The king's crawling out. With f5, the king's actually crawling out to c4, and black's winning. I've just made the evaluation wrong. There's nothing here. The king's escaping. So, but with rook e1 check immediately in this position, this makes it a win. Black is in trouble here. There's no f pawn. It's pinned here. So we've got bishop g4. We've got queen f7. Bishop e5 is apparently one of the better moves, but we just crash through with the attack. Yeah, obviously we're just winning the queen. So unfortunately for me, yeah, I didn't have a brilliant suit to show you there from this position. Instead, cold shower move, bishop takes h2. Apparently best is king f1 for some subtle reason. I play king h1. The thing is, if I take here, then he is kind of winning the queen with rook g8. So I've blocked this. If queen takes, we've got rook h8. So that's a nice idea of bishop h2. So I ignore it with king h1. But now he can just win the exchange, and he does so. And even so, I thought maybe I've got some compensation here. He takes the exchange. If rook g8 in this position, the funny thing is in this particular position, that rook e6 doesn't work as well as before, because rook e6 here, on rook e1 check, this is not working as well, because the king has f5, and this is winning for black. This position, it seems, the king has f5. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why the king didn't have f5 in the other variation. Let's have a quick look. Why didn't the king have f5 here? Let's have a quick review on that. And there's bishop e4 check in this position. Just mating the king like that. Okay. Like this. It's a mating sequence in progress. Oh dear. So there's bishop e4 check in that line, and there isn't in the bishop takes h2 line. It's a little bit mysterious tactically why here on bishop g4 there's f5, on check it's king f5. So bishop e4 here, it's king g5, and this is winning for black, this position. Some subtle differences in position, and it's winning for black here when it's not in the other line. Sorry, I'm having to work this out. I'm a bit slow on these differences of position, I'm afraid. So somehow bishop takes h2 first. Why isn't there any king g? Oh, just as a sanity check, why wasn't there a king g5 here? bishop e4, king g5, h4. This is again winning for white. Okay, so whatever, it seems to be that bishop takes h2 transforms the position very importantly to make rook g8 working here. Rook g8 actually works in this position, and it didn't in the other. And I thought there's no way bishop takes e5. Sure, I'm onto something here. I mean, I was excited to do that, and apparently it still loses here. But he actually played bishop takes e5, so he's winning the exchange. But I thought he's marking, f6 for me. So I take him. I thought, oh, this is good because I've got some prospects here on c6 again, and surely a perpetual check if nothing else, if the king's reverberating there. But he stops all that with rook g8, and he's actually the exchange up. If only he had gone somewhere else. This is a brilliant move. It gives the king f8 on queen f6. And it also gives the king e8 as an option, and in fact, well, actually they're both pretty strong. King f8 or king 8 are both pretty strong. He actually played to e8, so I played rook d6 thinking, oh, this isn't so bad, is it? But it actually is. It's the exchange down. Queen e7. I take king f8, and I thought I'd be clever here. I'd go into an ending, the exchange down, but I thought if I get these two connected passed pawns, that would be quite good fun, because I've seen a GM game recently with two connected passed pawns. So I came up with this move, which gets the rook on the 7th, cuts the king, creates a fawn pawn. I thought this is good compensation, but it is actually probably lost. Off the g5 is immediately going to try and get this pawn, and then will follow that pawn. This is my chance to slow down that plan with bishop e4. If he takes here, there's rook d8 checkmate, by the way. So that was the point of the pawn. But bishop e4, I don't think this really helps white, although it might technically be the best move. Apparently black's better here anyway. He can actually also play a5 to slow down my pawns and play like this. And then he's going to be playing rook g5. The rooks are going to emerge, and he's basically the exchange up. So yeah, a disaster has been witnessed here, just losing that exchange. My queen, virtually getting trapped after his, bishop g5 concept. And yeah, I took on a7 here, and the position just collapsed. Even though I've got my two connected passed pawns, he's taking on f2, and I realised actually this isn't so hot. They're a bit slow here. I'm actually going to get mated, because actually in this position he plays g4. He doesn't even bother moving the rook. I don't think even tempo lost would change the evaluation. It's such a crushing position. He can play this. So on takes he just plays g3 mating. So yeah, it dawned on me this is totally lost now. The game continued a few moves like this. I think round about here I think I resigned. Yeah, I just thought, blimey, I got my queen trapped from this lucrative, what seemed to be lucrative at the time to play this for this queen h7. It all completely backfired. He's double attacking the rook and also supporting h6 to try and encroach, to create a queen trap. Yeah, it's quite fun, a fun game. But yeah, the variations with rook e6, I thought, yeah, that gave me some optimism. So yeah, it seems rook g8 here is losing to rook e6. But after bishop takes h2 here, without the h pawn, what he took here, this position without the h pawn and the bishop here, it's not working so well. It doesn't actually win here because bishop g4 is f5, for example, like that. Yeah, that's incredible, those variations to work out as well. So I'm a bit phased. I mean, the game was only last night. I think I'm still a bit knackered from it. It's a shame. I mean, it was a fun game during the game. I felt fun, a lot of fun to be had during the game. And it's a good to revise the classic games in this line with the IQP, but the Botvinnik Vidmar game was in the evolution of chess style, and it was like just subtly different, but an entirely different game because it was subtly different. What ended up, black had given up the light square bishop, and Botvinnik was getting all his pieces into the attack. But yeah, this is very, very different when black has this knight on d5 threatening very concrete things in coordination with the bishop on g2. So yeah, the computer move a3, but even so, this position here, I'm not totally convinced. The engine evaluation is about equal. Although knight f4, it doesn't really work. Black just plays rook c8. And if white's really forced to play f3, I mean bishop g3, then black's even better. Knight takes. And what do we do here? There's always bishop e4. And we've got the backward c pawn. The structural transition is terrible, and we can actually end up losing horribly like this. So it's actually a very, very tricky position to play. This particular position seems very, very tricky to play indeed. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure really. The chance I missed, it seems, by the way, was, I think there was some sort of chance somewhere around here with involving d5, if I can get it. Rook ac1, rook c8. I think it was d5 around here, probably the best shot. I'm not sure I've mentioned this. If takes, then black would get a loose piece, so taking here and then check to win the loose piece. But d5, apparently it's still equal. E takes, so we've opened that. Bishop f5. I mean, apparently this is possible. Check. And there's some crazy lines here. Check. Bishop e5, queen takes, king d8. The king can actually crawl like this out, and it's dead equal again. Here, well, the engine indicates absolute equality in this position. It's like the king can survive. I've given black good dark square play by giving up the dark square bishop. So the queen by itself on h7, just doesn't seem that effective. So yeah, the game's a bit of a mystery to me. I'm still kind of trying to take it in what happened. It just seems the opening, yeah, perhaps the isolate queen's pawn scenario is not all that exciting against a very strong player. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.